Good afternoon and welcome to Moments with Pastor E. I have to say it's been a while since I've been on air live. I took the summer off, as most of you would recognize from the repeat programs, but I'm back. So here we go. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. I have with me today a very special guest, and I'm going to give her a moment in just a little bit to introduce herself and tell you why she's here. We're going to have a nice little conversation, and I hope that it would be helpful to you. Father, we thank you for this moment in time. We thank you for bringing us here. We pray that you would bless our conversation. Let it be a help to someone, somewhere, in Jesus' name. Amen. So, I'm glad to be back after the summer. Lots of things have happened, lots of transitions, but I'm here and I'm happy to be back with you. Thank you for supporting us over the years, and continue to, when you come in on Facebook Live, please share, subscribe, and let your friends know that Moments with Pastor E is back up and running in full swing. So good afternoon, my dear.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Very
Thanks
well.
for having me here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for accepting the invitation. So I'm going to give her a moment to tell you, and the reason I'm not even saying her name is because I know what people do to my name, so I'm not even going to try. I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell you who she is, and what we're going to be talking about this evening.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Sarojini. I am the Organizational Development Coordinator at the NECTN Project. We are based out of Lexington, but we work kind of all over Massachusetts and a little bit of New Hampshire right now too. We are a mental health and suicide prevention awareness organization. So we go into schools, mainly middle and high schools, but kind of all over the community, wherever people are talking to kids, and talk to kids and talk to adults about what suicide prevention looks like, how important mental health awareness is, and what we can all do to help each other in this life.
Very, very good. Yeah. That was a nice introduction. So this afternoon, we're going to be talking about suicide, mental health, and all that stuff. I know it's a difficult topic, and we would rather not speak about it.
Yes.
But it's so necessary.
Absolutely.
To because so many people, you may know some, I know some people, maybe I don't know them personally, but I've heard, of people committing suicide. And, there's a study that says suicide is the leading cause of death among young people. Is that
yes, and unfortunately what we're seeing is that trend. I think one thing that we are really fortunate to see is that those numbers are going down a little bit. I think after COVID and after the pandemic, we've put like a really necessary focus on mental health. But for the most part, yes, it is a leading cause, and depression and anxiety are really high amongst young people, especially young girls and young people of Black and brown, people of color, and Indigenous people as well. So these numbers are extremely high. Anxiety and depression can lead into suicide. So we're wary of all of it, for sure.
Yeah, and you know what kind of shocked me today, because I'm from the Caribbean, and in studying this whole thing, I found out that some of the neighboring islands, I'm from Montserrat, so some of the neighboring islands like Haiti have a high percentage rate of suicide. And I didn't even know that. Thank God you were coming on, so I did some studies. But a report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention looking at mental health and suicidal behaviors from 2011 to 2021 indicates that 13% of high school girls had attempted suicide. 30% had seriously considered it. That jumped to more than 20% for LGBTQ plus teens. 45% had seriously considered it. So it's almost an epidemic, and it's not it's not just in the United States, it's around the world.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us a little bit about the organization you work for and how it came about? Because it has the name NAN, and I thought that was, you know, an acronym. But from what you said, it's not. It's the name of a person.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we are the NAN project. Because of the capital letters, it does look like an acronym, but it is in fact the nickname of the girl that we're named after. Her name is Nancy Kavanaugh, and her mother and brother started this organization in 2015 to honor her memory. She died by suicide in 2012 after battling a long battle with OCD, depression, and anxiety. And she was diagnosed with this at about 14 years old.
And how old was she when she died?
She was 24.
Okay.
So she had battled this for a long time, and when she passed, I think it was a really big shock to the family, and they knew what was going on in her life. They knew about these diagnoses, but you never think suicide until it happens to you.
Exactly.
One thing that I know the founder, Ellen Dalton, says often is it was the stigma that killed her daughter. It wasn't just the disease itself, it wasn't the illnesses, it was the fact that the stigma around mental health and mental illness is so strong and so negative that her daughter hid what was going on and hid how she felt because she wanted people to she wanted to project like she's fine,
like she was fine,
and like it's okay and she can handle it, but she was battling those things for so long, and that emotional pain just took over, and unfortunately she did end her own life. So they started this organization in 2015 to go to schools and talk to kids when they might be getting diagnoses, they might be getting really big life events in middle and high school, and we made a joke like, oh, like middle high school, like, you know, just a bad time, like things happen, we grow out of it, but when you're there, that's your whole world, that's your whole life, and so when things happen, bullying, online harassment, you're trying to figure out your own sexuality, you're trying to figure out who you are, your own identity, all of those things can really contribute if people are being mean to you, if people don't accept you, or you don't feel like you can accept yourself.
And the thing we put on our younger people, or even older people, we say, oh, get over it. You know, you just have a case of the blues.
Right.
You know, we minimize it, not understanding what we are actually doing to the people that are carrying this burden, because it is indeed a burden. And I'm going to talk about my own daughter. I have a daughter that just turned 30 on Tuesday. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because we're talking about suicide and because she has told her story right on this platform. So, because I don't like telling people stories, I'd rather people tell their own story. But she was brave enough to sit on this platform and talk about her struggles and talk about the fact that she became so overwhelmed and felt like, you know, it's no use going on, that she almost committed suicide. And the thing that stopped her, and she talked about it, is the fact that at the moment when she was going to do it, I happened to call.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There was a telephone call. God must have prompted me at that moment to call her, because she said I was standing in the kitchen with a knife and I was going to slash my wrist. Whether she was going to be successful or not, we don't want to know.
Yeah.
We don't want to know.
But that phone call.
Right. That phone call, she said, the minute I called and she heard my voice and I said hello, she just dropped the knife. And that was it. And I want you to speak to this, because here we are as parents. We didn't know what her struggles were. We didn't have any signs that she was struggling. Isn't that really possible?
Well, so the thing that we always say is that there are always signs that someone is struggling with depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation. It's just that we are not trained to see that, or we turn to the thought of, oh, it's just one thing. You can get over it, or there's an easy solution to that problem. You're just going to do that. But the thing is, with suicidal ideation and depression, anxiety, it takes over your brain, and it makes you think that you are a burden. There's no hope.
Yeah.
It's helpless, and the only solution is suicide. And so really is a permanent solution to oftentimes temporary problems or problems that can be alleviated with the help of a community, with the help of a friend. But unfortunately, we don't get taught these in schools.
Right.
We don't really talk about mental health. I mean, even just growing up for me, like, talking about mental health was really quite a foreign topic.
Did you grow up here?
I grew up in Canton. Yeah, I
Okay.
went to Canton Public Schools, and great schools.
Yeah.
However, mental health just as a whole in our society is really oftentimes...
It's taboo.
It's really taboo, and just saying, like, suicide often was, like, the S word. Like, you don't talk about it. If you say suicide, that puts the idea in someone's head. But what we know now from a lot of research is that that's a myth. Talking about suicide very, very often prevents suicide, because then we allow space for the conversation. We say the word, and it just takes away that, like, that moment of, oh no, we don't talk about it. Once we put it in the room, let's talk about it. Let's break down what that means and how that reflects in that person's life.
And it's amazing. You see people and they look all put together and doing well, and you know, you think everything is fine with them until somebody breaks that conversation. Then people feel comfortable to talk about their own issues.
Exactly.
And if we're not willing to confront, we can't conquer.
Yes.
A friend of mine gave us that topic one time to speak on, and I thought it was so amazing. It just opened up a whole new world. Like, we could be hiding so much stuff, but unless we are honest enough to face it, we'll never conquer it.
Absolutely.
In my own life, I had to do that.
Yeah.
Like, facing things head on and not like stuffing it down. But, you know, like you said, no one taught us.
Right.
You know, or people take it for granted that, oh, you're overreacting. You're just having a bad day.
Right.
You know, this. And then I found out from my daughter, I just found out 2 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
She's now 30. I just found out 2 years ago what was happening. And she said, you know, I said, well, what brought you to that point? And she talked about being bullied and was just done with it, was just over the bullying and the, you know, and trying to figure out, you know, find her own way in the world, you know, because she was an only child. I could call her an only child because her older sister is 16 years older.
Right, so she was really growing up alone.
She was growing up alone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
And, you know, by the time she got to an age that she could talk to her sister, she's off to college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's doing her own thing.
Right, exactly. So now she is left alone here, you know, and like you said, we are not trained to see these things. Yeah, you may see them having a bad day or whatever, but does that tell you that they're depressed?
Well, I think one thing about depression that kind of sets it apart from just general sadness is it lasts a long time, or it just keeps coming back, and you can't fully identify where it's coming from. It might be, there might be the trigger moment of getting bullied at school or getting really bad news, getting fired from a job, and these are all things that we call risk factors. Tons of risk factors, a history of abuse, of drug addiction, family abuse, traumatic life events coming up, if there is a serious war going on, if a family member dies, or a history of suicide as well. So a lot of different risk factors can go into that. So that kind of sets it apart from like the general sadness, because everyone feels that way.
Has the case
and even
of the
like
blues.
it's October rolling into winter time. I hate it.
Seasonal effects.
Exactly. Like that is hits a lot of people.
Yes.
However, if so many people are affected by it, we need to talk about it. We all have some sort of personal touch to that. So being able to talk about it is key. And I think the best part of my job is I work with peer mentors. So the biggest part of our program is going into the schools and telling our own stories.
So do you go to the schools? Where exactly do you go?
Yeah, so we started off on the North Shore.
Yeah.
Because they were from the North Shore.
Right.
So they started in Lexington. That's where our office is. And then we go to truly so many different schools. You go Lawrence, Lowell. We went all the way to Springfield at an elementary school out there. We're starting off in Quincy this year, in Plymouth. We were just at one of the Plymouth middle schools on Tuesday. We're all the way up in Gloucester and some of the Ys, Boys and Girls Clubs, youth drop-in centers like U Forward in Lawrence, kind of all over the place.
Yes. Any thought of coming to the Boston area, the Boston proper area? Because I'm going to advocate for that because I live in the neighborhood. I live in Dorchester. So any thought of...
Yeah, we really will go anywhere. Yeah. Those are just places where we have contacts. We're able to get grants because we're a nonprofit, so we're really run by grants. Right. So we go where we're able to, but we want to go everywhere. We're starting in New Hampshire as well because we have some contacts up there. Right. But we're willing, able, ready to go to any corner of Massachusetts that people want us to come. And we bring our peer mentors in. So I'll go in. It's kind of... We have like our senior staff and then our peer mentors. So our peer mentors are between like 18 and 25 years old and they are young people who are sharing their stories. Okay. We call them comeback stories because there's a focus on the hope, there's a focus on the recovery piece and what helps them get from that.
So these are the kids that was suicidal at one point or on the verge of...
Yeah. A lot of them, maybe not exactly suicidal, but there has been depression, anxiety, bipolar, OCD, other different types of mental health issues that have affected their lives in some way. And they're now at a point where they're able to talk about it, where writing down their story and telling other kids about it is part of their recovery journey, is part of their comeback. Because that can bring a lot of peace, that can bring a lot of clarity to someone in their journey, sharing their story. And then in those sessions, so we go into classroom settings. That's usually where we like to go. Traditionally, like when a guest speaker comes into a school, it's in an auditorium, but we've really shied away from that because it doesn't really connect to the students. It's not like an intimate space, and students don't usually ask a lot of questions when we're there. So we go into classroom settings, we'll tell the story of how we created the NAN project, and then we'll have one or two comeback stories, and then we'll open the floor up to the kids to ask us whatever questions that can come from like our stories or just mental health in general. And then we talk about warning signs and how to find and tell a trusted adult about what has happened or what you or a friend are going through. So that's like the meat of our program. So we go anywhere.
So how does one connect with you guys? Let's say, somebody in the Boston area would like to see you guys in this area. How does that all get pulled together? Yeah, great question. So if you go to the nanproject.org, that is our website, and on there there's like a Get Connected. Okay. And you can fill out, just tell us a little bit about like the group or the school that you want to bring us into. We can do after school programs. If there's a parent group, because we do have like professional development and parent conversations that we lead as well, talking about mental health 101 really. So if there's a group or you're trying to get something together, or even like you have like a staff meeting and you want us to come in, let us know what the general like vibe is, what you're looking to learn, and where you are located, and we'll reach back out within like 24 business hours and get going. You'll hear from our assistant director of scheduling, and it's really easy. All right, so look into the camera and tell people where to go. There might be somebody who's listening who knows a group, has a group, wants to connect, So. For sure. Yeah, so if you would visit the nanproject.org, so THENANPROJECT.org, and then you go to like Get Connected, you can fill out our little like web form and just tell us a little bit more about the group that you're looking for, your name, where you're located, and what kind of
education you think y'all need. And then we can set up a time to Zoom with you or just email communication to get to know your group a little bit more, find out when the best times are for us to come. And then we'll come in. We usually take about like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, like anywhere between there. That's usually a decent amount of time to get through the education piece and have a good conversation. We love to have a bigger Q&A section so that people can ask whatever questions they have, because that's usually where the most education comes from.
Do you guys ever do like a Zoom,
Yes.
Zoom meetings?
Yes, we have done a lot of virtual, and we
Okay.
were striving through COVID, so we did a lot of virtual presentations, and we were happy to do that. And we usually have a slideshow that we can show on virtual or in person. So that is definitely a possibility.
Okay, good. Because somebody out there may want to connect with your group.
Absolutely.
Because mental health, I always say mental health is part of your general health.
Absolutely, yeah.
But for years there has been such a taboo around it. You know that people are, like you said, are afraid to share that they're not having good days. And you know it's progressing, but they're afraid to talk about it because then, you know, they could be marginalized, they could be, you know, looked upon as if because people used to consider mental health as being crazy.
Right.
That you're crazy.
You're going to get locked up.
Yes.
You're going to get put away.
Exactly.
100%.
And so, you know, I think people still carry that stigma with them that, you know, let me just suffer here in silence, which is the really dangerous
Absolutely. Super dangerous. Like we always say, there is help and there is hope. Never worry alone. If you have a worry about a friend, about a coworker, about a partner, talk to someone about it. And then there is a way to approach them and just ask them the question. And we usually say, like, if you're going to approach someone, list off the changes that you've seen, list off those warning signs. So if you have seen a friend or a coworker and they aren't dressing the way they usually dress, their hygiene isn't the way it usually is, they're sleeping way more or they're sleeping way less, eating way more, eating way less. Withdrawn, isolating, canceling plans, you can't reach them anymore through social media. These are some of the big warning signs. Drug and substance use. If that is something that they normally don't do or they do a little bit but that has increased greatly, that's a really big warning sign. And then, of course, self-harm or self-injurious behavior. So if you're seeing any of these, the best way to approach someone is just to say, hey, I've noticed these things, and I'm not coming at you from a place of judgment. I'm coming with a place of concern. How are you doing? What's been going on? And usually if you list off a couple of things that you've seen, it's really hard to brush that off. If you kind of come to someone and say, hey, how are you doing? Good, how are you? You know, it's not a very exciting question. Yeah, good, we're fine. And then you can brush it off, you move on to the next topic. But if you're saying, hey, I've noticed this, it shows that you care and shows that that person's not invisible.
Right.
Someone is seeing them and cares that they are not doing well.
And they're more apt to open up to you when you approach them from that very sensitive point as opposed to being judgmental. Because we as human beings, we know how to be judgmental. You know?
We're pretty good at it.
More than being sensitive, you know. And you know, I mean, it's so frightening because, you know, I always think about this girl, and she was on the news. You must have heard about her, that jumped from the 49th floor of her building in New York.
I vaguely remember.
She was a prominent attorney. She was on Extra, that show Extra, and I used to admire her because she had the nicest head of hair. You know, she had curly, long spiral. And she was always nicely put together. Her makeup was flawless. Everything was flawless. And just one Sunday morning, I think it was late last year, she suffered from mental health issues. But she looked like the picture of health and happiness.
Absolutely,
And one Sunday morning, she just jumped off the 49th floor and she was gone. And the very frightening thing about it was Billy Bush, who works on Extra, called her mother and said, did we miss something? Because she was the life of the party.
Yeah.
She came in like a ball of sunshine every day,
Yeah.
well put together, nothing missing, nothing broken. She was always like, and they were like, we've never seen her having a bad day.
She covered it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did we miss something? Well, the mom said, no, you didn't. Because I talked to her just about every day. Of course, mom knew that she had mental health issues and she was working on them.
Yeah.
But she said, no, I talked to her every single day. And not one day did I thought she was slipping into deep depression or, there was nothing that I thought was unusual.
Right. Yeah. It didn't look the way we think depression looks. And I think that is a really scary thing. It's pretty common to the person that's doing the most, has the most extracurriculars, seems to be the life of the party, has it all kind of going on. They can always be struggling. And I think that that's why we want to open up this conversation, is to realize that talking about these things, you're not a burden for talking about it. You're not putting on something on my shoulders if you're expressing that you're in pain. We want to know, but that is such a common thing that people feel that they are a burden to somebody. They're a burden to the people they love.
And they're ashamed.
Yeah. And
it's a bit of shame that, I look the part, but I'm falling apart.
Yeah, how can I do this?
How can I look the part, but I'm falling apart at the same time?
Yeah.
So people just don't want to. So speak into the camera and speak to somebody who may be going through some bouts of not just the blues, but, feeling like, I really can't do this. I speak to somebody about that. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Where do we go?
If you're feeling any type of way, if you're feeling that this constant sadness, it's like a shadow that's following you around, you're just being burdened down by it, and you feel like you can't go anywhere, the best place to go is to someone that loves you. That could be your chosen family, your biological family, whoever it is. It could be your pastor, it can be a coach on the soccer team, truly anyone that you trust. And just, you don't have to know exactly what's wrong. You don't have to say, oh, I have depression. You don't have to have a diagnosis to have depression and be sad. I think just saying, hey, I don't feel right. I don't feel the way that I want to feel. I feel off. Being honest with that, I think, is really, really scary, but it's the best thing that you can do for yourself. And you are whole. You are worthy of help simply because you exist. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be a football player, star quarterback. You don't have to be the best in class. You deserve help simply because you are a human being on this planet. Some resources that we really are tried and trusted here at the NAM Project are 988. It is kind of like the 911 version for mental health. If you call 988, they will connect you to a local suicide hotline and get you someone who can listen to you and tell you some resources that are around your area. And just having someone to talk, having someone to validate those feelings and say, hey, I hear you, I believe you, and you are not alone in this, can be extremely helpful. So please call, please reach out. Someone is always there. You may not know them, it might be a stranger, but someone is always there and someone always cares about you. So please reach out. And there are way more resources on our website as well for people who know someone who is struggling and just doesn't know what to say. Sometimes that can be the hardest thing. But just listening, being there is so important. Just saying, hey, I'm here, I hear you. So we have a ton of resources on our website. There is help and there is always hope. So please reach out.
Well said. And you said the 488 number.
988.
988.
Yeah.
So when we have an emergency, we call 911.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Someone's sick at home, someone fell, whatever the case is. We dial 911. We find that number. Okay, so for mental health, thank God, there is
Yes.
an emergency number.
Yes.
988. And like you said, you're not alone. You're not alone, because it says here CDC's provisional data for 2022 show a record high of 49,369 suicide deaths, coming after modest declines in 2019 and 2020. So in 2022 alone, almost 50,000 people killed themselves.
Enough to fill Fenway Stadium.
Yes, exactly. So that's why she's encouraging you. You're not alone. You're not the only person that feels like you're despondent, you're sad, you're in a place that you can't get out of. You're not alone. Dial 988. Or get onto the NAN project, see what resources they offer. I mean, don't be ashamed. And, you know, I'm from a Christian community. I'm a pastor, as you know. And I am a big advocate of people attending to their mental health. Okay? Because sometimes in our churches, we feel like, okay, well, we have God, and God can answer. And yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly, and I believe in the power of prayer. But I always say to folks, if you take care of your physical health by going to the doctors, why can't you go to the doctor to take care of your mental health?
Right, right.
So if you need to find a good therapist, you can find yourself a Christian therapist. They're very few and far apart these days, though. It's very
hard to find
a good therapist because what COVID has done to us.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's
looking. One thing that we do have now across Massachusetts is community behavioral health centers.
Okay.
So these are kind of like urgent care for mental health.
Okay.
So some of them have different hours, and you can just Google it on Elliott Community Human Services website. They have more information about community behavioral health centers, or CBHCs.
So community behavioral health centers.
Yes. Yeah. They're places where you can go to get directed to direct services.
Okay.
So if you're like, something's happening, I don't know where to go, 988 or finding a community behavioral health center is your best bet. I think that those are really great resources for people that just don't know or have not been told.
Right.
And I think the other thing that we can do, if you are like sitting at home or you're saying to yourself, well, I don't know anyone who is suicidal, I don't know anyone who is depressed, so this doesn't really relate to me. One thing that we can do is gather resources. It's better to have them when you don't need them than to need them and not have them. And watch the language we use, watch how we talk about our own mental health. We don't want to we want to promote like self-care and that positivity, but we want to be realistic about it. So if you're not feeling well, just say, hey, like, I don't know, I'm not feeling great. You don't have to say you're depressed. You can just be honest about where you're at. And one thing I will say too is when we talk about suicide, using the word committed suicide has the stigma of that you've committed a crime. And legally, it might be a whole other thing, so lawyers, we can talk about it later. But when we're talking about it amongst friends, we say died by suicide.
Okay.
That's the best way to say it, so we take away that stigma, because the word committed can mean like, oh, that's a criminal act, you've done something wrong. It's just making it worse to talk about it afterwards, so then people can hear that and say, oh, well, they think suicide's a bad thing, so I must be a bad person. So we want to change our language, change our brains, change our habits. So if you do run into someone, you do have a friend that is thinking about depression, thinking about suicide, they just haven't told you yet, you can present as someone that they are able to talk to if you change your language. You can show as someone that they can trust, so that when it does come down to the time where they need someone in that moment, they know they can call you. And that's the main thing we can be, is that trusted adult, is that friend, is that listening ear.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been with the NAN project?
I have been working at the NAM project for a year now. Yeah, I started last September. And so my job at the NAM project as organizational development coordinator is coordinating our peer mentor program, making sure everyone gets to all the schools they need to go to, all the transportation needs and everything. And some of the behind the scenes work of, we're trying to expand our program, we're trying to get to more schools, we're trying to get to more states. So I am involved in just how can we grow
like
in an equitable way.
Type?
Yeah, in a way, and getting some systems down to really making sure we can kind of like expand in a way that is equitable, that's making sure that we're keeping track of all of our pieces so we're not leaving people behind. And finding more money. Because unfortunately we are a nonprofit.
Right.
So,
So like you said, you depend on grants, right?
Yeah.
So in your estimation, what has it been a great success so far?
I think I'll brag about my job for a minute because I think working with the NAM project, we're a really small team. There's 11 full-time staff and then a myriad of people in the background helping us get everything that we need and really make this system go, and then about like 20 peer mentors. And it is a full train of people, and everyone does their part to work on it. And something I've really benefited from in this work environment is that we are able to talk about mental health. So when I am really not doing well, they say, you know what, work a half day or take today off and then you can do the rest of this tomorrow. They are very forgiving and very understanding of when things happen. And I would love to see that in more work environments. I know it's not always possible, but we can be considerate of other people's mental health and where we're at. And we're talking about really heavy things all the time. So I have just been really lucky to find this job and do this work with these people. So that's where I've been. Hopefully I'm there for a lot longer.
It seems like you're very passionate about what you do.
Yeah, I love what I do.
Now, the success rate among the schools that you have gone to, have you seen like a decline in, behaviors and...
I think overall in Massachusetts we have been seeing that these programs do work.
Okay.
And for us too, we have seen that when we go into schools, the students can take away something. Like they know, okay, this is an action step that I can take. This is how I can be a good friend. And there's been oftentimes where we've gone back to a school after about a year of not being there, and a student will come up to us and say, hey, you guys are the NAM project. After this happened, after you guys spoke to us, I went and spoke to my mom. And I did this, and we get like a lot of thank you notes from students too.
That's amazing.
So there are a lot of success stories where people are hearing us, even if it's like the quietest kid in the back of the room, or even the kid that looks like they're on their phone or doodling or goofing off. That's just their way of coping with this intense topic, and we don't take it personally, and we don't know what they're taking away.
Because it is intense.
It is.
When you're talking to high school kids about mental health.
Yeah.
As adults, we don't want to hear it.
Exactly.
Never mind these kids that are already having a hard time in life, and now you're coming with this thing, and whatever helps.
Yeah, exactly. And we have like a very wonderfully diverse group of people. So like I get to speak to to these brown kids who haven't been able to speak about this in their culture, who haven't seen someone talk about it that looks like them. And a couple of times I've had young Indian kids come up to me and say, hey, like, my parents won't talk about this. What do I do? Or I've never heard this spoken like this way before. Or, I've been bullied too for the color of my skin. And just having that one connection can change a kid's world. And so that's all we hope to be. And we go into schools every day just saying we're going to do our best.
That's awesome because, a lot of these high school kids are dealing with so much stuff. I did not even recognize that up until lately that, some of these kids that are going to high school, they're living in shelters. They live no place. They're running around from one friend's house to the next. Don't know where they're going to sleep tonight, but, have the drive that they're going to they're going to succeed. They're
Yeah.
going to make it. And I've seen some success stories, boy, with, you know, some of these high school kids are now climbing the corporate ladder.
Right.
Having been homeless,
Yeah.
being foodless, you
Yeah.
know, clothesless.
Yeah.
But they were determined.
Yeah.
And I think your organization, you know, speaks so much to these kids and takes a little burden off of them, you know,
Yeah.
making them understand that it's okay.
Yeah.
Because there are other kids that are going through the same thing. Because
Yeah.
sometimes they may feel isolated too.
Yeah, they might be like, I'm the only person.
Yeah, I'm the
like
only
this.
homeless
Yeah.
high schooler.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that's begging for food somewhere.
Exactly.
Begging for a
We
place.
don't know where kids are coming from. They're bringing in way more than just their books in their
Right.
backpacks.
Right.
There is so much trauma
Yeah.
going on. And yeah, so hopefully we can kind of, and coming from all of the different places that all of my peer mentors come from, all of our stories are so different.
Mm-hmm.
And so one peer mentor might talk about their struggles
Yeah.
with homelessness, or another might talk about their parents' divorce
Mm-hmm.
or moving from this country to America. There's so many different
Yeah.
paths, and so we want to normalize that all of these paths can bring up a whole lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And so how can we talk about it, and how can we connect together to
Yeah.
say, yeah, I've been there and it gets better.
Yeah, because some of these kids move from foreign countries and are living here.
Yeah.
And it's very hard sometimes to fit in
Yeah.
because, you know, kids are cruel sometimes. So they hear your accent and, oh boy.
Yeah, where are you from?
It's all horrible.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah.
you know, even moving here as an adult, I moved here when I was, you know, like 29. And it was hard settling into the culture.
Yeah.
It was really very hard.
Yeah.
But I was older, so I
Yeah.
dealt with it. But imagine taking a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old, 15-year-old, and landing them
Yeah.
in this culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah. Just all this. It's hard to figure out, like, okay, am I wearing the right thing? Am I doing the right
Yeah.
thing? I don't know. Like, sometimes, I mean, language barrier is
Yes.
so common. One thing that we do when we go into schools is we bring tablets
Mm-hmm.
that have all of our presentations downloaded in 7 different languages.
good.
So, for example, Khmer, Haitian Creole, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic. We have these languages so that when there are students that their first language is not English,
yeah.
they can still follow along and be able to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And usually there is a teacher in there that can be the translator to help us like answer those questions for them. But we want to make sure we're touching every kid
Yes.
in some way,
Yeah.
because that is like the
is
hardest.
so
When you're
important.
kind of sitting there like, this has nothing to, like,
Yeah.
I just don't know. So we want to try to bring everyone into the conversation.
Would you come back?
To hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved our conversation. Oh my God. And I hope this was helpful to somebody, because you know what? We need to break down those barriers. We need to, you know, be able to get past the taboo and, you know, all these things that hold us back, actually, because, you know, unless we can confront,
Yeah.
like we said, we can't conquer.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and there's so many people that are living in fear of, I'm not going to be liked, I'm not going to be respected because I have this issue of mental illness.
Yeah.
Like, I suffer from depression, I suffer from, and I mean, it's not one culture or one race that this is affecting. It's affecting everybody. If you're a
Absolutely.
human being
Absolutely.
that walks this earth,
Yeah.
at some point you feel some sort of way.
Yeah.
You know
And
what I
we
mean?
all have, like you said before, we all have mental health just like our physical health.
Yeah.
So, gotta take care of
Gotta
it.
take care of
Yeah.
it. You know, I mean, if you're struggling, 988 is
Yeah.
the number,
Yeah.
and the NAN project. And I'm certainly going to have you back on again, because this
you.
was awesome.
Thank you so much.
You know, because like I said in the beginning, it's a difficult conversation, but I feel like, you know, these are things that we have to talk about.
100%.
It's no longer the 1930s where everybody is just in their
Yeah.
own little space.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what mental health was.
Right, right.
Okay?
Yeah.
There was a disease that was considered, you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Let's get some ECT. Let's put you
Yeah.
in a back room, dark room, someplace.
Yeah.
But this is a whole different world where, you know, there are treatments.
Yeah.
And people don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
You just have to take care of it, take the bulls by the horn and say, I'm going to take care of my mental health as I take care of my physical and my spiritual health.
Yes. Yes.
So, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I do appreciate you. And
you
say
so
hi to your sister.
Yes, I will.
Her sister is actually my co-worker. And they're anxiously waiting the arrival of this little baby girl.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my God. When is she coming in? 2 weeks?
Yeah, truly, like any day now. I'm waiting for the call. Yeah.
So you guys are overexcited, right?
So excited to have a
Yes.
new baby girl in our lives.
And I met your dad a few years ago.
Oh,
So
great.
I know who
I was
he
like, the
is.
fam.
So, and your sister was
Oh,
on
yes,
my
yeah.
show. And Angela was on my show too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is your family show. This is a
It's
shut
a family
show.
affair. Who knew? But thank you for having me. I
Oh,
appreciate
you're welcome.
it.
And I do appreciate this was awesome.
Thank you.
Lots of good information. And I encourage you, go on to the NAN project, NAN project, and you can get all the information there that you need. How to connect. You have resources on there,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So don't suffer. There is help out there for everybody. So until next Saturday at 3 p.m., this is Pastor E saying, may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Have a wonderful evening. God bless. I love you.